Was it just me, or was the first 3 seconds of this newest episode of Succession completely insane? I went through so many thoughts and so many theories and ideas in those first 3 seconds. It was just an absolute roller coaster. We get, to start the episode, a shot of Logan Roy. I literally went, oh my god! Ghost Logan Roy! And then immediately my brain went, Jax, this is not Supernatural. You're an idiot. Shut up. You should maybe stop watching Supernatural. This is Succession. Why would there be a ghost Logan Roy? And then another part of my brain was like, but what if it is? What if it is? Or what if this is some kind of Scream 3 situation where he's filmed a recording of himself for post-death and Logan Roy is going to give some kind of post-death situation where he's like, now I will tell you, if in case I die, who will be the next to succeed me. And then another part of my brain was like, that's even dumber than thinking it's a ghost. What are you, an idiot? And then the other 2 parts of my brain were like, yes, we're an idiot. And the other third one's like, I forgot for a second who I was speaking to. But then I suddenly and keenly observed that the back of the screen was not some kind of usual background, but in fact, a green screen. And I'm a bit versed in filmmaking and such, so I thought, aha! I know what this is. This is clearly just some kind of behind the scenes. There was just probably a little box next to the episode 6 box on the binge streaming service that is some kind of behind the scenes. And I must have just clicked that. In my eager excitedness to watch the new Succession, I didn't actually click on the new episode of Succession. And then I clicked pause and it was like episode 6 and I went, Now I'm truly confused. And at this point, we are about 3 seconds into the episode. I have truly gone through a rapid-fire roller coaster of thoughts and feelings, and then as I clicked play, I realized, oh, it's just footage from some kind of, ad that he was going to do for some kind of Waystar product of some sort, and it's just part of the episode, and it is not a ghost. It's not a video from the past for the future, in case he died. And it's not a behind the scenes. It's just the start of the episode. And what a start of the episode it was. This felt like the writers were finally giving us that final Logan Roy moment that we've all wanted. I loved how everything was done in that 3rd episode. I loved how we didn't see him die, how we didn't see him for so long as he was dying, creating so much doubt and mistrust and fear. It was so good to put us in the position of the siblings in another situation. It was perfect. Check out my review for that episode. But I still kind of feel like, as an audience member, and I'm sure lots of people like that, I really would have loved one final Logan Roy moment where he's belittling staff, where he's angry to be in the situation he's in, where he's not doing the right thing, and someone who's the professional in that situation tells him to lift his game, and he tells them to F off. And, in the same thing, even though none of his children are around, he still tells people he hates his children. And then it pans out of that situation, and his child is still looking up at his dad, who is dead, and he's still trying to impress his dead dad. And that all culminates in just a perfect cold opening for a perfect final season for what I would argue is once again a pretty perfect episode of TV. Ever since the start of Succession, we've all been wondering who will be the winner of Succession? Who will win the game of Succession? Who will succeed Logan Roy? And this episode finally, definitively answers that question. No one. No one is going to win. Well, at least none of the Roy siblings. Straight off the bat, I'm obviously discluding Connor in this conversation for obvious reasons, so he's out of here. Obviously, Tom doesn't count. Greg, they've forgotten that Greg isn't just a side comedy character. He's not just comic relief. He had plots. This season, they're like, I don't know. He doesn't have a plot, so I guess Greg's not in the conversation. We are focused this season on Roman, Kendall, and Shiv. The 3 siblings, obviously excluding Connor. So the 3 siblings have been vying for power, and we have been watching them thinking, who will succeed? None of them. Not a single one of them deserves to win Succession this season. And I think episode 6 really, if anything, episode 6 was entirely focused on showing they are not going to win. Kendall Roy is so close to having another drug-related mental breakdown. He is so close to completely losing his mind. This episode really reminded me of his party episode, where during the party and as he's building up this party, he just keeps having these ideas, these insane things. But at the end of that episode, he kind of realizes what he's doing and he kind of backs down. This time, he doesn't back down. He's doing all these things and he's pushing the numbers and the legality and all these things. He's pushing, and it's building up. And then suddenly, at the end, instead of being like, whoa, Roman, Shiv, you're right. I shouldn't, follow through with this. He follows through with it. And what's worse for his mental state, his emotional state, and for his life in general, is that everybody at the end of this applauded him. At the end of his big speech, his big to-do-da, everyone clapped and seemed to like it. He even responded to the Madsen tweet positively and kind of, on the spot kind of came back at it and had a good response. And everything seemed to go pretty well, which is then going to bolster up his ego, bolster up his confidence, but is going to keep pushing him. And he said right at the start of the season, hey, I need stuff to constantly energize and constantly push my brain. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to the drugs and the alcohol. He doesn't say that, but that's the subtext of what he was saying in that first episode of this season. And everyone clapping him at the end of the episode and be like, oh, hey, you're the best. And he's like, oh, I'm the best. Oh, it's such a blur up there. I don't even know what was going on. I'm just in the zone. We are moments from a Kendall Roy breakdown. Now you might be thinking, but he won the episode. Kendall won the episode. Shiv and Roman clearly lost the episode. Kendall won. Team Kendall. L to the OG and all that stuff. Yes, I hear you. But the final scene of this episode is chilling and upsetting and terrifying. Kendall is aimlessly wandering through a beach alone at dusk or at dawn. It's some kind of time when there's no one on the beach and he's just wandering like a lost puppy who has no idea where he's going, who's looking for his father, and he's in the ocean. Just remember, and honestly, this is just my interpretation. I could be entirely wrong. Maybe it is meant to be a powerful moment where he's like, I am king of the sea! Look at me, I am Poseidon! Or something. And something about washing the sins away with the water and all that stuff, which I did read for a second. But then I just had this horror flashback to the last time we saw Kendall in water. When he almost drowned at his lowest point. With his kids in the other room. Kids who we've not seen for a very long time. This is not the signs of a man who's going to succeed and win a succession. This is a man who is one, maybe 2 episodes from having a drug-related mental breakdown and potentially killing someone else again, or maybe even dying. So yeah, Kendall, not winning Succession. Don't get me wrong, I love Roman. I love that weird, sexless, sex pest, little funny man. I love Roman, but he is not gonna win Succession. He will not be the Game of Succession winner. Here's why. He has been immediately corrupted by his power in the most insecure, childish way ever. As soon as someone even looks at him the wrong way or questions him at all, fired. He fires everybody. Firing the studio executive felt like at one moment it was it might be just a power play, just a kind of, hey, I'm the big CEO, I'm just gonna make a change. This movie isn't making money, things are going wrong, I'm just gonna fire someone and show that I'm what's what, and I will do the hard thing. It's a big Logan Roy move, just to walk in and be like, I don't care what you have to say, fired. But it's not actually that. On paper, a step back, when Kendall's hearing it, he's like, okay, let's do this. But he wasn't there in the room. The woman in the room kind of doesn't even say anything. She's just kind of giving him a look, and he's all like, oh, hey, you're probably wondering what I'm even doing here. I'm just a silly little boy. And his insecurities are just flying everywhere, just waving a big flag, and on it says, I am super insecure that I'm not my father and can't live up to my father. I love my father in brackets, but I know he hated me, question mark, maybe? He's just waving this very big flag with way too many words on it. And clearly, he's just completely out of his depth. And he knows it, and he's so afraid everyone else is going to know it, that he's going to do the one move he can do, which is the big boy, power play CEO move, which is just fire her. He could just fire her. And then later he's like, oh, I just fired her. Or didn't I? Oh, you just fix it up. Whatever. He's just so out of his depth. He's so completely clueless. That's his only move. That is not a man who wins Succession. I got so worked up with the other firing, I forgot the actual firing that shows that he's completely lost his mind. Jerry. Jerry has been his, I don't even know how to describe her. A mother figure that he loves to be in separate rooms and listen to on a phone or through walls and jerk off to. Mother figure. Yeah, Roman's got some issues. He's always kind of flirting with her in this weird Roman way, but he feels genuine connection to her. He feels bad when things go wrong for her. And so she pushes back on one thing, the first thing that he's done as a CEO, really. And immediately, he's just like, hey, are you with me or you're not with me? And she's like, I'll say I'm with you, but like, I don't have to mean it, right? And he's like, you're fired. What? It's so brutal and mean. And clearly, as soon as he walks out of the room, he's not all like, ha, 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 look at me, firing everybody. He's like, oh my God. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And then Kendall, because Kendall is also completely spiraling, Kendall does the worst. It's like the best thing as a brother to do is to back up your brother. That's what I would do as a brother in that situation. But it's the worst thing to do for Roman in that moment, because Roman is completely doubting all his choices, and he almost has this moment where he could come back from it. And Kendall's like, oh my God, who are you going to fire next, bro? That's sick, dog. Oh yeah. And Kendall does that Kendall thing he does when he's like this close to having a drug-related mental breakdown. Roman is clearly way too insecure and completely clueless and has no idea what he's doing, and he's not going to win Succession. I mean, there's probably like 600 other reasons, but this episode was just like, no, why would you think they would win, you idiot? Were you ever watching the right show? Have you been paying attention? And I suddenly realized, oh, I actually have been paying attention. I just got so caught up in like the Game of Thrones kind of feeling of it all, where it's like, Game of Thrones, there's so much going on, but who's going to win the Game of Thrones? I got so caught up in the main idea of Succession, of who will succeed and be the successor. No one. None of them. Succession's final season has one problem. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Succession, and Succession's final season is turning out to be one of the greatest final seasons of television of all time. I am loving every single element to this final season. It is so shocking, funny, breathtaking, heartbreaking, devastating, intense, amazing, all the words to describe this final season. But there is one element, just one tiny little element of this final season that now we have 6 episodes in the bag and only 4 to go, I feel like is letting it down a little bit. And that, unfortunately, is everybody's favorite character, Greg. I unfortunately think Greg has been sidelined to be a supporting, guest starring, comic relief character. He doesn't feel like the main character Greg that we knew from season 1, 2, and 3. I feel like in season 1, 2, and 3, Greg always had a purpose, a plot, something that was driving him to be in the story that wasn't so much just, hey, look at this side guy who's saying a funny one-liner every 15, 20 minutes. And unfortunately, in season 4, I feel like that's all he's been. Not to say he isn't hilarious. He has been so funny. Every single episode has 2 or 3 golden Greg lines. And I felt like for the first 3 episodes, I was really on board with that. Because I was like, oh my God, they are just milking the Tom and Greg show for all it's worth. Just giving us all that delicious Greg juice. Just give me all the Greg juice. I want to laugh at everything he says. But now that we are further than halfway through the season, it's suddenly starting to feel like there's not going to be a plot for Greg, not a storyline for Greg. And yes, you could argue the storyline is he picked the wrong side and now he's trying to figure out who he's going to gravitate towards to be on the winning team. But unfortunately, I don't really think they've either solved that enough or they've just done enough with it. And my only thought is they've sidelined Greg because they just want to focus so heavily on the 3 main Roy siblings. Because obviously, as we all know, big spoilers for season 4, Logan Roy is dead. So, and that obviously, big shock. No one ever saw that coming. So from that point, it suddenly became, we're going to really focus on the 3 kids, how they feel about it and how they deal with that and how they're going to deal with who's going to be the successor and all that stuff. So they're really focusing and they're really giving us lots of juicy material with all of those 3 characters. And just because an episode can only be so long, Greg is pushed to the sidelines. And on one hand, I kind of understand that. But on the other hand, I think he was a fan favorite, at least one of my favorites from the get-go. He's like one of the first characters to be introduced in the show. He's one of the most interesting and hilarious characters. He's the main character that was just a normal human being who got sucked in to the corruption of wealth and power that is the Roy family. And I don't think they have gone far enough. Like, yes, right at the end of last season, Tom was like, hey, you want to sell your soul and be a bad guy? And he's like, what do I bloody need a soul for? And it was hilarious yet tragic at the same time. And I don't feel like this season makes me go, we had come to the end of his arc, so now he's just there. I feel like there was something more to be done with Greg. And I just think because Greg is such a fantastic character and it's a final season. I think final seasons for so many shows, this show has only got the 1 issue, but for so many series, the final season can often feel so, I don't know, not depressing, like disappointing and underwhelming because so many characters get like pushed to the sidelines. And it just really hurts in this season that Greg is one of those characters that doesn't get his due. And I could be wrong. There's 4 episodes to go. There's no time. You've got to get to it, or you're just choosing not to get to it. And I find that disappointing, just because Greg's like the best character ever.